Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today from Mama Elephant with this fun little scene card featuring the new Big News stamps and coordinating dies, part of the April 2019 release. However, I'm going to pair them with a bunch of my previously released favorite products and critters to really make this scene shine. The Big News stamp set contains 3 adorable critters, an elephant, a bunny, and a bear, that are holding signs, and then tons of sentiments to customize those signs. We're going to start with one of my very favorite frames. This is the Mama Elephant Tri-Window frame that I've die cut from smooth white cardstock. I've taken those rectangle cutouts that are inside each of the little frames, and I'm going to ink one with cracked pistachio distress ink. I'm going to ink the second one with spun sugar distress ink, and the final one with picked raspberry distress ink. So we're actually only going to be coloring the inside part where the scene is going to be taking place in each window opening of this, and keeping the frame white. The frame will be popped up with foam adhesive, and all of these panels are going to be adhered directly to our card base. But then the critters and other elements that we're going to use will be popped up with foam adhesive for the most part. Some will be glued directly to that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we come to that in the project. It really just kind of depends on the dimension I wanted. And also sometimes the size of the images are so small that it really works better to glue them directly to the project. So I'll show you that as we start putting together each scene. I did this a little different than I normally do. We're going to stamp each little individual frame, color them, assemble it, and move on to the next. I did have an idea already of what exactly I would be using. You can see I have stamped them here on Bristol Smooth cardstock with VersaFine ONYX black ink. What happened was I did color everything in. I colored it in too dark. I really felt with the bright, soft pastels that I'm using, I said bright, soft pastels I'm using, that I needed to use lighter colors. So I actually went back and re-stamped these, and I'm going to be coloring them in with a little bit lighter hand and lighter colors. The sign was colored with mid-brown and beige. That's about the darkest thing on the card. And then my bunnies are beige, light beige, and the colorless blender. The blender is my favorite for really blending out the colors and creating that soft look. Pink haze was used for the cheeks on the bunny. And then bright yellow, yellow, and pale yellow was used for the flowers, and then light green and yellow green for the stem. The thing with the flowers, I thought I might mix it up and do them in different colors. I ended up coloring all flowers the same, and I did stamp these multiple times throughout the card, so you're going to see those show up in the first and third windows. Those are the windows that had room for them, really. And I did that as I went along. That way I knew how many I needed to fill in the window. This top window is going to have the most. I actually only stamped these 2 to start with. One is the large flower is from the Bunny's Hop stamp set, which was last year's, as well as the partial bunny. That's from the Bunny's Hop as well. Then the small flowers are from the Big News stamp set that we're featuring today. I went through my Mama Elephant stamps and looked for coordinating critters from other stamp sets that resembled these. And I really was excited. The Bunny's Hop and Stackable Cuties had about everything I needed for this. I will be using a sign and a mouse from the cat's Meow. But other than that, most everything came from Stackable Cuties and, of course, Big News. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Now, I did put foam adhesive on the back of my frame. I adhered those inside panels directly to my card base. We're going to pop our frame down, and we're going to start assembling the critters in our first window. Let's go ahead, though, while everything's still attached to the background sheet before I die cut it, I am going to stamp the sign. And I decided to stamp all of my signs with a clear embossing ink and heat emboss with white embossing powder to really brighten up and kind of pull back into the white border that we have on our card. It's very white background heavy, and I thought that the white would really pop a lot nicer than stamping the sentiment with black. This first little sign is stamped with "So Very Proud of You." As I mentioned, the Big News stamp set has so many sentiments. You can create all kinds of different cards. I picked sentiments that kind of I felt flowed together, and you're going to see that as I assemble this design. Foam adhesive squares are put on the back of the bunny sign, and we are going to pop him into the first window, and then we're going to glue the bunny peeking out, hanging out from the top of the sign instead of coming up from the bottom, just for something a little different and fun. We're going to glue that directly to the background. So that's one of those images glued directly to the background. The large flowers are going to be popped up with foam adhesive. Remember, the large flowers are from the Bunny's Hop stamp set. The small flowers are from Big News, and those are going to be glued directly to the background. Black glaze pen was used for eyes, and there's still a lot of space. So this is where I'm going to come back in a little bit and add additional flowers to that first opening. Let's color in the images for our second frame opening. That's going to be the elephants. So we're using the Big News elephant holding his sign. We're coloring this in with mid-brown and beige. And our elephants are going to be colored with some grays. And this was really where I felt like I kind of went off track with my original coloring, which I did not share. I probably should have showed that, but I kind of forgot. I already pitched it. I wanted to go soft. So very, very minimum gray with a little light gray to blend that out. And then we're using our blender to blend all of those grays out. So super, super soft for the elephants. Pink haze for the ears, but just a little bit of that as well. And then using our blender to blend that out. So very soft and sweet, a little pink haze for the cheeks. Our flower, as I mentioned, that's going to be the same. I think this was an additional flower I stamped for the first window. I'm going to go ahead and pop some bright yellow, yellow, and light green and yellow green on that before we color in our other elephant. Again, you can see teeny tiny touches of gray, not a lot, very, very small. A little bit of light gray to pull that out, and then the blender is what's going to be used to blend out the rest of that color. Super, super soft, and that gives you the soft color. The blender is invaluable. I absolutely love the blender for creating super soft coloring looks. The last thing that's going to go in the second window, because these images tend to be a little bit bigger, I think, than some of the others, and just the way it all falls together, which you'll see what I mean with the balloons are going to overlap, those are in the third window, is the mouse. And I colored him a little darker, but with gray and light gray and the blender as well. So same colors as the elephants. We've die cut those now, and now we're going to pop him up, both of our elephants, with foam adhesive. Make sure you don't put any back behind his head since that overlaps the window frame. So both the sitting and the standing elephant with the sign, and his sign reads, "You're all sorts of wonderful," again stamped with a clear embossing ink, heat embossed with white embossing powder. And then I do have some additional flowers, which I originally just had these, and I'm going to come back at the end and add a fifth flower because I felt like 2 on one side and 3 on the other. I like that odd number a little better. Let's come back and work on our images for the third and final frame. That's going to be the bears. Our bears come from Big News. That's the bear I'm coloring now. Stackable Cuties, the sitting bear. The sign is from the cat's Meow. And then our flowers are going to be from the Bunny's Hop and Big News. The balloons are from Big News as well. So our bottom window seems like it has a lot, but those balloons are going to extend up above into the middle window of our scene. For our bear, he is pretty much the same colors as the sign with the exception no mid-brown. We used mid-brown on the sign, but not on the bear itself. We used beige and light beige with a little blender. That's how we got that dark look for him. And I pulled more light beige into this than I did the bunnies, because you'll remember these are the same colors I used for the bunnies, but I kept the beige color to a very, very minimum because I didn't want to have them too brown. I wanted them to be a little lighter. And I want my bears to be just a teeny tiny bit darker, but still not dark. Pink haze for the bottoms of their feet, blended out with light beige, and also for their cheeks. For the balloons, we're going to tie these into our background colors with peach pink, sugared almond pink, and the blender for one balloon, turquoise green and green shadow with the blender for the second balloon. And that blender just softens those up, but that pulls that color from our background into some of the elements in the design of the card. Our other little sign here, instead of doing brown for this one, I did brown for the stake, and we're going to make the sign itself pink with peach pink and sugared almond pink. Let's assemble our third and final window now, and that's going to give us an idea of if we need any additional images or elements, which I am going to add a couple flowers here. Again, we are attaching our bear with the sign, and this time it says huge congrats with foam adhesive, but make sure and don't extend the foam adhesive too far up on his head because that overlaps the frame, which has already been adhered with foam adhesive. We're going to put the other bear on the opposite side of the frame and fill in the center part of this with the other little sign attached with foam adhesive, a flower adhered with foam adhesive, one of the big flowers, that's from the bunny's hop, and then another small flower from Big News. And we'll kind of come back to that. I'm trying to figure out the best way to attach my sign, and I'm going to kind of tuck it back behind my bear just a little bit, kind of at an angle for a little fun touch. Now the mouse, I purposely did not attach him to the middle window until I had the balloons in place because I didn't want to cover him up. So once I knew where the balloons were going to go, I could attach him over to the right side of that middle window. Little foam adhesive back behind the pink balloon. And there are the balloons in place. Black glaze pen for eyes, noses, all the things there to make the faces really, really pop. And then I've got my other big flower that I was talking about. And again, for consistency throughout the design, I colored them all the same. So we're adding that to the bottom panel. We're going to add one of these little flowers from Big News to the upper panel. I'm using tweezers to keep my fingers out of the glue. And we'll add the final one to that bottom frame over to the right of the bear. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this fun tri-window scene card featuring the Mama Elephant Big News Stamps and Dies, part of the April 2019 release. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Mama Elephant Stamps and Dies you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.